Today, I am thrilled to have Linda Christine join us. Since she was a small child, she always felt deeply connected to our Creator, the wonders of our planet, and all creatures. Throughout her life, she took baby steps towards her spiritual calling, but never fully stepped into her power. Then in 2013, Linda was forced to examine the trajectory of her life after her stage 3 cancer diagnosis. She left the corporate world in 2014 and by 2015 stepped on to the path toward her life purpose. Linda is a writer, author, photographer, creative alchemist, oracle, and intuitive who walks in service to humanity. She embodies lifetimes of wisdom, inner peace, creative play, abundant love, radical mysticism, and a touch of the modern witch. Her current offerings are individually tailored to you, using her intuitive guidance and psychic abilities. Welcome to the show, Linda Christine. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Everything Considered podcast with me, April, your host. Today, I have a very special guest, as I have mentioned, Linda Christine. Welcome to the show, Linda.
Thank you, April. I am so grateful to be here, and I appreciate you so much and putting up with my manifestor throat wound.
We were just talking about that prior
Yeah.
to coming on, and that, I'm a human design specialist, and Linda here is a manifester, and so am I. And one thing that happens to manifestors is they're not really well understood, and they get shut down, and the response is to try to play it small. So when we're in the spotlight, it can be a little bit, it can be some pressure. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I sound squeaky today for that reason.
And that's okay. That's okay. When I'm on the other end, I sound squeaky too. So it's all good. But we're just two buddies here going to talk about Linda's journey, her adventure on this planet. Um, and you saw the book. I put it up there prior to in the intro. So she's written a book about her
Thank you.
experience. But what I want to hear about now, what I think would be good is if our audience have a little bit of a foundation. Who was Linda prior to her cancer uh, journey?
Mm. Well, I was living the programmed life. I believed that I needed to get married. I needed to have children. I also was very driven, so I wanted to have a very um, powerful career path.
Mhm.
Since I am super creative, I went down that road. I started in TV, gosh, back in probably 83
Wow.
um,
Okay.
as a part-time camera person in a very small market in Colorado, and I worked my way up in 2.5 years to be the production director there, and quit college because I didn't believe in the education system. I had some foresight back then. I don't know how.
That's
So
good.
I was self-taught, and everything that I was learning on the job. And then just kept moving up in market size, because in TV, that's what you do. You go from the smaller markets up to the bigger markets, and just keep cutting your teeth on the bigger and better jobs. And I eventually moved into management, which, looking back now in hindsight, I believe was my downfall,
Mm,
because I'm very expressive. I like to share myself creatively, whether that's through art or the oracle cards I created or writing. Um, and that's my joy. And then I
mhm.
went into management, and I thought how wonderful to be able to lift these other beings up and teach them how to be creative and do all these things. But if it was only that, it would have been wonderful. But as we
Yeah.
know, in the corporate world, you're managing up probably more than you're managing down, and you're
Mm,
making shareholders happy, and you're looking at the bottom line all the time, all these very dense and discordant things that you have to deal with. And that eventually just really took its toll on me. And I believe that, in addition to a very challenging marriage that I had, led me to the path of manifesting my cancer.
mhm.
We
Yeah.
hold a lot of anger in the gut area.
Ah, okay.
And um, I was holding a lot of resentment for what I had to do in my personal life with my husband and the dealings with that. And then what I had to deal with on the corporate level at my job. And it just eventually took its toll. But I also believe I signed up for that and I subscribed to that journey and that experience
Mm,
and had to go through it because that is what was going to shift me into the person that I am now.
wow.
So I regret none of it.
That's good.
But in hindsight, I can see all of it so clearly and why it needed to happen.
When you were talking, I was thinking she's a creative, but she's doing a not a creative job anymore. And so she doesn't have expression there. And then she's in an unhappy relationship. And so she doesn't have expression there. And it's like that all of that's got to go somewhere, right? Your body's got to cry out and say, this is not aligned, this is not aligned. And a lot of times that comes, I believe personally, not everybody ascribes to that belief, but I do. I agree with you that if we don't hear the body, we don't hear our inner knowing, that it does manifest oftentimes in dis-ease or some sort of physical symptom. So I understand that journey. I've had a similar journey in my own life, so I get it. But what I find beautiful, Linda, is that you are so empowered, like like you didn't. Um, there was no pity party, or at least you were able to work through that in order to take your power back, so to speak, and learn from this journey. I loved your book. There was so much raw, vulnerable, extremely important information for anyone that's going through something like that. And you were just very courageous. And then what I also loved about your book is that you had at the end of every chapter prayers, assistance, suggestions. You didn't leave anybody hanging. You did that while you're going through that. That's pretty
Yeah, yeah.
impressive.
And at the time, I did the first part of each chapter in the book is my blog as I was going through it at that time.
Hmm.
And I was coming up on my 10-year anniversary and I realized of being cancer free. And I realized there was still a story to be told there. There was still this nugget of hope that could be shared out there. So I went back and pulled certain blog posts and I'm like, wow, look at that. I in that 10-year time, which happens in a blink of an eye anymore,
Yeah.
so much had shifted in my life since then. From those lessons to the newer lessons and the newer embodiment of my beliefs. And yeah, so that's kind of how I decided to outline the book. I said, perfect time, release it 10 years after the fact. That in itself, I think, should give a lot of people hope that, and I shouldn't say hope because to me, hope is kind of vague. It's more
Hmm.
like have a solid trust and a faith that you can overcome and you can completely shift your life 180 degrees.
Yeah.
And it's doable for anyone. You just have to really feel it deeply on the inside, unless, of course, your journey is that of something else, too.
Right.
There's always that variable in there where perhaps you are supposed to go through some sort of suffering or trauma in order
Hmm.
to fulfill an agreement with another soul that you have here or other
Right.
souls.
Right. Yeah, here on Earth, we're these little humans and we can see a little bit. We can see what's in front of us, we can see what's around us, but we only have five senses. And I think some of these things, when they occur, they give us in time a broader perspective that maybe we hadn't actually like understood before. And that's what I was seeing in your book, was this evolution that was taking place through your journey. And it was interesting, when it all started, everything had finally gotten to a place that, you wanted to be, and then boom, this hits. And
Yeah.
rather than and I'm sure you had difficult moments where you just wanted to throw in the towel and say, "Forget this," you know? Um, but I was inspiring to see, how you learn to get through it, how you learn to understand it, and how you learn to receive. That's another big issue for a lot of us, is how do we receive, during those times? I definitely struggled with that when I was ill. I had COVID and became very ill, and when I came home, I was on a breathing machine, and my legs had turned
Mm.
into toothpicks, and my hair had fallen out, and all these things.
Oh my.
And I had to really, for the first time ever in my 35-year-old marriage, let someone else do for me. It was a really hard thing at first. I wasn't used to receiving. Can you talk a little bit about what it is to receive when we're going through these things?
Mm, yeah. That's always been a challenge for me as well. I remember in the beginning of my treatments, because I back then I chose the traditional route of chemotherapy. Um, and it was basically going to take up my whole year. I learned right before my birthday in February, um, that I had the cancer,
Mhm,
and then had to go through that whole year. And I'm like, okay, nah, it's not going to slow me down. I'm going to keep working. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep doing that. And your body just says no, time out, not going to
mm,
happen. You eventually get to a place where you can't physically just do what needs to be done. I would kill myself trying to make a meal or trying to clean the kitchen.
yeah.
And I finally, after I was probably about 3 or 4 treatments in, I'm like, okay, I just can't be at work anymore. I can't pull this off. It's not happening. I have brain fog. I'm just totally out of it and drained. And then at home too. My youngest was still at home. It was a
Mm,
bit confusing for him. He's Asperger's, so he's on the spectrum. So to him, things are very black and white. So he really was having a hard time understanding what was even going on.
mhm,
And Greg, my now husband, and I had just started dating a couple years earlier. And yeah, I just had to just say, okay, the house is not going to be clean the way I like it.
mhm.
The boys will figure it out. They'll
Right.
get stuff done. Somebody's going to come in and bring me some food and I'll be okay. And I just have to get out of my little box of how things should be and just resign myself to letting others assist me.
Mhm,
And the outpouring that I received just it went 2 ways. It was very interesting. Um, People that had always been there for me disappeared.
mhm,
And other people who were standing in the background, kind of just quietly there, stepped up and showed up
wow.
and did whatever they could to assist me. And it was so beautiful and so heartfelt. I mean, even just getting a card in the mail
Mhm,
was just like, wow, this person took the time. They were thinking of me. They're sending me a prayer. They're doing this. It was so beautiful.
mhm,
And it was almost like a way for me to clean out the old, get rid of what was no longer serving me, the people that were no longer serving me,
yes.
and bring light to those who were standing in the background that maybe I hadn't even recognized were standing there for me.
Mhm. Yeah, you said you were kind of a type A personality, which I can really relate to, just always more comfortable in the position of doing.
Yes.
And you were put in the position of being, just being. And that's for a type A personality, that's a tough thing initially. Initially, it's tough.
Yeah. And that I believe was part of the lesson as
Mhm,
well, was to, and I think this happens to a lot of people if you're not paying attention to your body, paying attention to the signs, listening to your heart, getting out of your head and dropping into that heart space, something's going to whap you upside the head and stop you dead in your tracks and be like, okay, time out. You're going to be flat on your back now for a while, and you got some things to learn from this.
Yes, a lot of valuable lessons. A lot of valuable lessons.
Yeah.
Um, so you had all these people that were kind of stepping up and helping people you never expected, and then other people dropping off. And I think a lot of times when we're a type A personality, at least as everybody thinks that you've got it all under control. You know, and it's difficult for them if they've seen you a certain way to then see you in a different light. Now you're in a different position. Now you're not the caretaker. Now you're the one needing the caretaking. And I think that's a tough adjustment for some people. And I don't know, but perhaps I imagine that the ones that kind of went away, that probably was a little bit of the maybe unconscious discomfort with it, because
Oh, absolutely.
you'd been a go-getter, like you were the one, you did it all. And so, that's a tough adjustment.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's some weird programming around cancer and a lot of disease to
Hmm.
where people just, I mean, even when people pass away,
Yeah,
um, there's this weirdness that some people are like, I don't know what to do, so I'm going to choose to do nothing
right,
kind of mentality. And I don't hold anything against anybody. At the
right.
time, I was hurt. At the
Sure.
time, I wasn't as aware of my world as I am now. So
Yeah.
that was a hard adjustment. But again, to me, it just all played out so perfectly.
Yeah. Would you say when you were going through it that you felt like that, or do you think now looking back on it, you see it more?
Definitely with hindsight. At the time, I was just kind of feeling my way through it. I knew there was something in me that was shifting on an unconscious level. And consciously, I was just kind of riding it out, just going with the flow of what was happening. Like I started my blog as the same name as my book, Finding Zen with Cancer. And I blogged at the time about my journey back in 2013. And it was so odd that I picked that. I mean, I'd always been a little bit woo-woo, but it was
Hmm.
something that I kept to myself and I kept hidden, and it wasn't something I shared with a lot of people, but I decided to put that out there. So it was kind of like me finally coming out of my chrysalis and just being the person that I really am meant to be.
Wow.
And then, I mean, everything just happens so perfectly. It's so weird. I got to the latest stage of stage three. I mean, yeah, I got to the latest stage of stage three, but everything was figured out at the earliest time of that stage, if that makes sense.
Yes.
It was like, oh, we just removed some polyps from you. Okay, that's normal. A lot of people have polyps removed. Oh, well, they came back and they showed some cancer. So, because of your family history, we're going to be aggressive and remove part of your colon.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. So then they did that. Oh, guess what? Lymph nodes came back with cancer in them. Now you need to talk to an oncologist. It was just like kept going and
Hmm.
going. I keep thinking, okay, I'm done now. The polyps are gone. Nope,
Hmm.
you're not. Okay, I'm done now. I got that bad part of my colon removed. No, you're not.
Right.
And it was all, I think, really just to stop me and shake me awake.
Hmm. Yeah.
And my personality type, I needed that
Yeah.
because even I went back to my corporate job knowing it was so bad and so toxic and I needed to get out. I also knew they wanted me out,
Mm.
which is very common when a lot of people go through things like this. All of a sudden, you're just not tip top like you used to be.
Right.
And I knew it was coming. Intuitively, I felt it.
Hmm.
And so I just played the game, went through the last few months that I came back, and then went on my way. Well, my heart has always been in photography. I love photography. So I saw this photography apprentice job in Tampa, and I'm like, I know that guy. I know I could get that job in a heartbeat, not a problem. But the other side of me was like, oh, but look at this job, this big fancy corporate job with this high salary and this title. You could go get that. And I'm like, oh, maybe I'll try for that. Eh, Universe is so funny in how it plays stuff out. I made it through every interview. I sailed through it. They loved me. I got to the 11th hour and they're like, oh, Linda, we're sorry. The guy from the competition that did this exact same job just applied for the job. And well, you understand why we would want to go with him. And I'm like, oh, you're funny, universe. You're real funny.
Yeah.
A day later, I call up that photographer in Tampa, knowing damn well he'd hire me in a heartbeat. He hired me in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So that set me on the trajectory of getting out of that world and into a world that's more aligned with who I am.
Yes.
But and you can't even like make this stuff up.
No.
I couldn't get back in if I tried because it's like you have learned a lesson. Come on, wake up. Get with the program here.
It's so true. You can't, once you've learned it, it's like you can viscerally feel it in your body when you're moving towards something that is not aligned for you. And it's a weird thing, having had sort of a similar experience. I, I will try to do something that I know is not correct for me, and there will be every roadblock in the world. And typical, like old April, would push through that thing, just barrel right over it,
Yep.
make it happen. And it's just not, it doesn't feel correct. It does not feel correct. And it's like you can't at this point be anyone else but who you are.
Yeah.
And,
And when
and
it's aligned, every door starts to open in front of you.
right.
It's
Yeah.
so easy.
It's so easy, and it's like, gosh, I sometimes say I wish I would have known this long ago, but I had to go through all that to get to the place that now I know it. And now
Yeah.
you know it. And it's what it took for us, you know. But
Yeah.
what I want to say to people out there that might be in this circumstance is kind of what you had alluded to before. As you're going through it, you're trying to learn the territory. And it's okay if you don't understand right now. It's okay if you're kind of angry and confused and sad and scared and all of the things that are very normal. At some point you will have a better understanding, but to like hang in there until you do. And that's what I loved about your book, because it was so vulnerable. It was encouraging, but there were things you described that, would are difficult to hear, but that was what was real. That was real. And I think, it's important people be able to see what that is. It gives them like wondering, am I normal to feel this way? Am I normal to be having these things going on during this process? And I feel like that book kind of gives people some, I don't know, assurance. So,
I appreciate you saying that. Because it's just this is like a big classroom,
yeah.
and the lessons that are popping up for us are meant to be absorbed and taken in. If we just kind of blindly go through all the motions, we're not going to learn anything, and we're not going to become more conscious beings and live a more conscious life.
Right. Right. And so this was like you said, it was a gift. It was a gift. It slowed you down long enough for to have to kind of search those things out, try to understand, and become who you are today, which is who you want to be, as opposed to trying to fit into like a cog in the machine, and it's not to say that, there isn't a need for that, or that that's not correct for some, but it just wasn't correct for you. So I think that that speaks very loudly about what it is to be aligned, to have that connection with your inner knowing, to trust that that's within you.
Yeah, and I also think you don't maybe need to leave the corporate job
Right.
if it aligns for you,
Hmm.
but there's a certain level of conscious awareness and light that you can bring to that environment, and perhaps while you're there.
Yeah.
When I started, I was an apprentice for like a year and a half, and then I went out on my own because I wanted to learn the business aspect. I knew the picture aspect, but I didn't know the business aspect. So that job really served me well.
Hmm.
It also put me in front of another narcissist,
Oh boy.
which I had had many in my life. And I'm like, okay, Linda, what are you doing to attract these people?
Yeah.
So there was another lesson there that needed to be learned. But then I started coming out in my woo-woo self a little bit more. And I would get these jobs with lawyers, I would get jobs at hospitals, and I'm like, oh, this doesn't align for me. Why am I being sent to these horrible corporate places? And then I realized you are bringing light to those horrible corporate
Hmm.
places.
Hmm.
As a photographer, you see the most important people could be placed in front of you, like a powerful attorney or a brain surgeon or somebody. And you see them in their weakest moments
Hmm.
because you're photographing them. I love the eyes are the window to the soul. You can see so much happening in people's eyes, and they become so vulnerable in your care. They're like, oh, I don't like my picture being taken. Oh, I'm not good looking. Oh, this is a horrible thing on my face. And it's like, oh, wow, I can teach these people. I can bring confidence to their human being. I can make them feel good about who they are when they're in front of the camera. So that again opened a whole nother level of awareness for me that was like it doesn't matter where you are. You can bring your beautiful conscious light to whatever it is, as
Yeah.
long as it aligns for you and you're in the right space.
Yes, and you're getting to do what you do, which is create, which is
Yes.
because you are a creative person, and that's really beautiful. Like anywhere you go, shine who you are, and what you went through kind of gave you permission to finally do that. And you mentioned narcissist, and I think there's a lot to be learned from those folks too. Primary for the empath, for the sensitive person, maybe to love themselves more. You know,
Mm.
I think that's the big lesson that they bring us.
Yeah.
Is self-love. You know, where
And
they're just
boundaries too, I think,
boundaries.
because I would let those people just walk all over me in the business world.
Yes,
And I had to stop, finally go, why do I allow this
yes,
after everything? Why am I allowing this?
yes. Yeah, I think it's, when you're a nice person, when you're a caring person, you're a sensitive person, you we make an assumption that everybody else is like that too. And and that's a big lesson for the sensitive people, is that some people are so deeply wounded that they are not able to meet you with an open heart, and that you also have to, you know, protect your open heart, you know, sometimes like be your own advocate, and that's another big lesson, I think, that comes out of going through an experience like you did, because you learn to advocate for yourself. Would you say that's true?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, because even when uh, I went back to my job, there were a lot of changes that had happened structurally in the organization that were making it harder for me to be who I was. I really had to put on this facade when I was there. I really had to be something that I wasn't. And I started going there every day in fear. And that was really eye-opening too. And I know I totally just skirted around the question with that, but yeah, it's a big shift, and it's such, again, I just keep going back to the learning opportunities. When
Mhm.
you're in it, it sucks. It's
Yeah.
horrible. You
Mhm.
cry a lot, you scream a lot, you drink a lot,
Yes.
and then you step back and go, okay, I'm done. I'm done being this person. I'm going to go be myself
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you can't fit your shape back into that space anymore.
No.
Once you really take form as who you really are, you can't fit
Mm,
yourself back in that shape.
write
And
that quote down. That's beautiful.
yeah, that just kind of
I
popped
love
out.
that.
Probably heard
I
it somewhere
love
else.
that.
But yeah, you just there's no way to like twist yourself back into that shape. And I do think, and my hope is for people that do work in the corporate world that they do see that there is a need for a kinder, gentler, more human workspace. I feel like that's part of this message too, is that there's so many people that just don't feel like they matter and they're just going through the motions and they're not able to be fully who they are. And
Yeah.
that's that kind of like chips away at the soul. It's a very hard thing. So maybe the more people realize that, the more, you know, um, workplaces will shift to a more kinder, gentle, or more human um, environment or human accommodating environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of these younger people are bringing that forward because this newer generation in the workplace is way different than the
Yes.
last few generations, way, way different. So I think they're going to go in and shake stuff up because to them, the grind isn't important.
Mhm.
70, 80-hour work weeks was not a big deal for me.
Yeah.
But these younger kids, they're like, screw that. I got friends I want to see. I got a life I want to live. They don't even want to do the 40,
Right.
So the change is coming.
The change is coming. And I think that's a very good thing. I think with change, like before there's like this initial shakeup that you're talking about. It's almost like labor. The worst part is that transition part when it's getting ready to happen. And I feel like our world is kind of in that state right now. There's a lot that is being disclosed, coming down, falling apart. And that's actually very encouraging. It's, in a sense, because it does mean that there's something new coming, something I think that's probably more evolved and more conscious, more aware. And that's very, very positive. So, yeah. And of course, our generation, I think we're close to the same age. Um, Generation X, maybe that was the whole idea we were sold on was,
Yep.
work hard, work too hard, work as many hours as you can work, um, be successful, you know, um,
And
just
then we were
push.
left to our own devices most of the time because that's when we started to have dual income households too, or
Yes.
single parent households like I had. And it was like, oh, okay, yay, I get to raise myself.
Yes, the latchkey kid, that was my
Yeah.
experience as well. We actually wore a physical key around our neck so that we could get into the house, which was often dark and empty because the parents were both working, and that was definitely my experience. Cheerios for dinner.
Yep.
Right,
Yep.
so not good. It's kind of like it went to the other extreme, and I feel like what you're saying about the younger generation is very accurate. Like they're looking at this and they're like, nope, not doing this. And I don't know what they're gonna do, but I know it's not gonna be that, and I think that can only be a good thing. That maybe they won't have to have some of the difficulties that we've had in trying to become, our authentic self. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, I want to hear about these cards. I just ordered a set for
Oh,
myself.
and
I'm
I'm
very excited.
so appreciative of you. Should we do a card pull?
Sure.
You
Absolutely.
want to?
Let's do it.
Throw April for a loop here.
Okay. Oof. Now I'm
Okay.
nervous.
We're no, we're well, let's do one for the collective and see what comes through. This is the deck. It's
Oh,
called
look at
Soul
that.
Script, and it's based off of, I guess you'd call it a modality that I came up with because I knew my soul wanted to create beautiful creative things for people, not just do regular readings.
Mhm.
So Soul Scripts is one of my offerings where I go into the woods, I bring through a message for you that could be some prose, it could be poetry, it could be something that your higher self or your guides. I even had somebody's dead father come through and share something for his wife once that way. And then I marry it to a piece of photography that I've taken that kind of goes with the piece of writing. And then I called it a soul script.
Okay.
So then when I made the deck, I thought, oh, these are like little soul scripts. So
That's awesome.
and they come without a book, a guidebook, because you are all intuitive beings. You all know how to pull in the information that you need from your heart space, from your inner knowing. So we're going to cut the deck right here and see what message we get for the collective. I mean,
Okay.
it couldn't be more perfect. Self-love.
Oh, yeah.
We all need to sink into a space of self-love. Even if you think I'm there, I love myself, there's always a little bit more. You can always
Mhm.
push it a little bit more. And I'm not talking self-love like going and getting your nails done or something. That's beautiful and all, but what
Right.
if you started journaling for yourself? What if you tried connecting with your inner self, your higher self, and doing some automatic writing? What
Hmm.
if you um, decided that you were just going to try something new every day of the week, some sort of affirmation that you were going to tell yourself in the mirror every day, like 10 times, just to drive it home that all that beautiful love that you give to everybody else,
Hmm.
you are most deserving of it. And if
Hmm.
your cup's not full, how do you have it to give to other people?
Perfect. That is so,
So,
so true.
yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Well, will you do one for me?
Oh,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I want you to hold something in your heart that you may want some guidance around.
Okay.
Just put me on the spot.
I will probably not
It
tell
is so
anybody.
hard to sit on the other side of this because, I have my podcast too, and I'm like, oh, it's so much fun. And then you get on this side and it's like, oh, it's pretty
Oh no.
stressful.
I know. That is true.
Okay, April. Oh my gosh, you cannot make this stuff up.
Again. Wow.
Self-love, self-love.
Mm.
Um, Sink a little deeper, my friend.
Mm.
Go
Yeah.
within. You're going through a lot right now. There's a lot on your plate. Do not put yourself last.
Oof.
Go and fill your cup up every day. If it's just getting out for a little walk around the neighborhood or sitting in meditation or journaling, fill your cup up first. You
Mm-mm-mm.
need it. You need it.
Thank you.
Now, you saw me pull that out, right? I wasn't
Yes.
hiding that anywhere.
Well, that
That
is
is
definite.
wild.
Yes, because my first instinct is always, oh, I can't do that for myself right now. I've got to do this for this person or that person. And I'm finding that there right now with everything going on, it's not an option. I do need to do that for myself. So I'm trying to be almost kind of like a tough mother to myself. Push
Well,
through
and when
it.
you do, it doesn't even have to be that much. 15 minutes, a half an hour.
Mm.
If you can't find that in the day, you got to rethink your day and your
Everything.
life and what's happening. Because if you just carve that out for yourself, get alone where no one's going to
Mm,
interrupt you or disturb you, and take that time for yourself and honor yourself and tell
mm,
yourself beautiful things,
hmm.
your day is going to be kick ass.
Exactly. And the days that I'm good with it, it sure is. And I'm learning. It's a learning curve for me. It's a learning curve. You just get into this rut. You get these messages when you're young about what your role is. And some of us, our role is to be the caretaker. So we think all the time, and to allow yourself to receive, to allow yourself to stop, to pause, to allow yourself to indulge in something that you enjoy, find enjoyment. Those are all big. It seems very simple, but it's really not when we're kind of conditioned to not be that way. So I appreciate the reminder because that's exactly what I've been trying to work towards.
It's
Is
not easy. It's not easy at all. Big one for me was n my husband lovingly refers to it as the corporate bitch mentality that I
Mhm.
carry. And it's not in a negative way. It's like I will just take charge of whatever situation. So now I kick back and go, no, you decide. You decide where we're gonna eat. You decide when we're gonna leave.
Yes.
Because that's a lot of pressure we put on ourselves too, is having to be the one in charge.
Yes, and as a manifestor type in human design, we do that very easily. No one else is doing it. I got it.
Yep.
I got
Yep.
it. But too many of those I got it's, and you find yourself kind of burning out, and which
Yeah.
is not good. So I'm learning to back away. I'm learning to say no and to move towards things that I resonate with, and move away from things that I don't. And it's not a personal thing, it's an energy thing. It's guarding my own energy. And that's a new one for me. So that card was perfect. It was perfect for the
Yeah.
collective. So all of you out there, that was
Yes.
for you, and for myself. So you would do all you have different offerings that you bring. I saw that you have all kinds of different offerings. You do consults and readings with people.
I do some coaching,
Okay.
intuitive coaching.
Okay.
Um, it- this process of awakening,
Mm-hmm.
this conscious expansion, whatever label you want to give it or give it no label, there's a shift coming. There are things happening. And a lot of people stepping into this are like, I don't know what's happening to me. I think I'm going crazy. I'm starting to hear things, see things, feel things. I don't know which end is up. It's nice to know you have somebody there that can help guide you and assist you through that. So that is one of my offerings. Another one is I've been struggling with a name for it. So I came up with Shamanic Soul Journey, where I
Mm-hmm.
do a reading that's pretty intensive. I go out into nature for about an hour or two and just pull in animal signs, pull in signs from plants. What am
Mm-hmm.
I seeing that's different? I get information from the higher self. I get information from people's guides, whatever. It can be a myriad of things. And then I transcribe all that information and then have a one-on-one meeting with the person. And we go through what I have discovered. And then they decide, oh, tell me a little more about that. Let's dig into that. So then I'll just pull tools from my toolbox to dig deeper into that, whether it's tarot or oracle
Mm-hmm.
or just more connecting. So that's another offering. I do little card pulls,
Yeah.
$2 a minute.
Yeah.
Like they do at the little shops now, but it's kind of fun and easy to do it via Zoom. And then I
Yeah.
do dragon soul readings.
Oh, okay.
Everybody's got a soul dragon or two or more.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of do the same process with that. I go connect with the dragon, I pull in all the information, and
Mhm.
then the dragon helps guide me through creating artwork of the dragon so that you can hang your dragon on your wall. You can use it to activate a deeper connection with that dragon, use
Mhm.
it for meditation, that sort of thing. Yeah.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah, we are going through a lot right now, and I think that what you're sharing is so valuable, because it is a bit disconcerting and disorienting at times, and it's wonderful to have someone like yourself that is willing to, to help, to consult, to listen, um, and to help that person find their own inner guidance, their own inner GPS, because it can be hard to navigate. We're not taught to, I think from the time we're little children, we're kind of conditioned to not tap into our inner wisdom, and finding our way back to it can be a bit of a tenuous journey sometimes. And to have someone that is willing to hold space for your journey, that's a very beautiful thing, Linda. I'm grateful that you're doing it. So,
Thank you.
so to find out more about you, they can go to your website.
Yes,
And
theowlandthecrone.com.
okay. What is what is
Being
the
of a
app?
certain age. Well,
Yes.
the crone, you hear the word crone, you think of a haggard old lady, like a
Yeah.
witch out in the forest or
Right.
something.
Right.
But the crone is really an older aged woman that is filled with wisdom from her life's journey. So she has this whole little tapestry of wisdom that she can share with the
Mhm.
world that she has learned, so she can guide you and assist you and offer you ideas on, how you can perhaps not go through some of those hard knocks
What
that
a
she
valuable
has.
resource. What a valuable
Yeah.
resource. I was talking to a friend who said she felt called to work with younger women. And I was thinking to myself, there has never been a greater need for that. And
Yes.
there you you may not we may not as older women have all the answers, but we've fought some battles, and we've won some and lost some. And in going through those things, we acquire information that might be very helpful to somebody who is either in something very difficult, or hasn't got there yet, or something's on the horizon and they just need a little bit of guidance. I would have loved to have had that when I was a younger woman.
Oh, absolutely. Your
Yeah.
friend, I'm so glad she's listening to that call.
Yeah.
Mm,
It's
much
so
needed.
important. And what is the owl to you? What is the significance of the owl?
It is wisdom again. And I was doing one of my shamanic soul journeys in the woods, and I had had like three of them in a row. Or as I was wrapping up, I would hear the barred owl make
Mm,
its call. And if you've ever heard a barred owl and have never heard a barred owl, it's like freaky to hear. They make the weirdest hoots, but they are loud and they echo through the woods.
mm,
And it was like, here's your confirmation. Here's your confirmation. So I'm like,
mm.
I'm getting assistance from these beautiful birds. I mean, how can I
Yes.
not embrace them in what I'm doing? So that it was just an intuitive thing that came to me one day, and I'm like, I'm gonna take it.
That's
I love
beautiful.
it.
In the gene keys, birds are of the Siddic frequency, Siddhi, and the Siddhi
Mhm.
is the divine expression. It doesn't have a very good translation into English from Sanskrit. So birds in particular are they represent the city frequencies, the highest
Mm.
frequencies. So,
You want to hear something wild that I saw on Instagram, and I wish I would have saved where I saw it. I don't even know if I sent it to anybody, but this guy took the whales call that you hear and he sped it up like three times and it sounded like birds.
wow. Yeah.
And then he took birds and slowed it down three times and it sounded like whales.
Oh my goodness.
There's something in
There's
that for
something to
sure.
that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That blew my mind.
Oh, that is so beautiful. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. And I have really loved this conversation, Linda. So everybody out there, I know that you've enjoyed this. If you want to get a hold of Linda, I will have all of her details below this video or audio if you're listening on any of the audio platforms that I use. And I'm just so grateful that you came today. I'm so
Oh
happy
my
to be
gosh.
getting to
I
know
am so
you.
grateful. And my voice is coming back. You just hold such a beautiful space, April, and it really put me at ease. I appreciate that.
I'm so glad. It's been just an honor talking to you, and love to have you on again sometime. If you think of
Thank
a
you.
topic that you would love to discuss, we could dive into. There's no shortage of them these days. So,
Right?
yeah. So, but I want to respect your time, so I won't keep you. But thank you for coming on. And everyone, please find her. She has some beautiful offerings. I love her website. She's an incredible photographer, artist, creative. So check it out. I will put her
Okay.
information below. And thank you so much for joining us on the Everything Considered podcast. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye, everybody.